So my first question, bro, nowadays my first question is how have you been? And I want the realest, fullest answer I can get. How have you been?
I've been really good, dude. I've been really good, just being honest. I know on the surface, with things on the outside, we look out the window and things look crazy, but on an internal tip, like, dude, I'm focused on probably more focused than I've ever been in my life. I don't know if you know, I got a family. I'm married. I got two boys now.
Yep.
Um, and just they've obviously helped shape that because, I have a unit that I'm working for besides myself. And it's just helped with a lot of ownership of stuff over the past year since I've been down here. So now now we're definitely getting to a good spot.
I
We're
can't remember
definitely
the last time I heard somebody say I'm doing really well and like actually meaning it. So tell us, man, because I obviously you have a family and you live in North Carolina, I believe.
yes, sir.
So tell
Yeah.
us, because a lot of, whenever I speak to people, whether it's a mental health podcast or not, it seems like people are not doing too well nowadays. And it seems like, you seem happy, you seem glowing, you seem like you're comfortable. So tell us, like, how did you get there emotionally? How are you doing so well in this crazy world?
Well, for the first thing, it was not easy, and it usually never is. Nothing genuine is usually very easy to get to. It's more
Yep.
easy to maintain once you find that space
Yep.
to be authentic and genuine with yourself. So I think a lot of it is just really ingraining that in yourself from jump and knowing who you are and where you're coming from. And then from then, everything else is just kind of noise. And you just pick your battles and what you want to hear, what you don't. But it has been hard fought. It has. I did a lot of inner work, read a lot of books, wore a lot of different hats, did different jobs. Uh, but over time, you get tired of just kind of trying to find yourself in things, and you got to
Mhm.
just sit still.
Interesting. Interesting. So it sounds like let's talk about that. What do you mean by sit still? What do you mean by that?
The world is constantly moving,
Hmm.
and we're constantly moving and evolving and changing.
Hmm.
So that's kind of it's a bit of an extreme in a world like that to find a way to sit still, completely still. It's one thing to be stagnant, it's another thing to be complacent, but to purposefully just sit still and actively sit with the silence, create the silence on your own, sit with it to understand yourself. Because I feel like when you do that, well, backtracking, I am a spiritual person. I'm not
Hmm.
very religious in the traditional sense,
Hmm.
but I do believe that, I do believe in meditation. I do believe in just sitting with yourself, and answers definitely will come to you if you allow them to.
That's really interesting. So here's what I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess that for a long time you felt the need to move. You felt the need to constantly move around, and that you kind of felt guilty sitting still. Did I hit it on the head or no?
Yeah, it definitely gets in that bag a little bit as far as just your body becomes used to a certain level of momentum. And when we move in that, everything becomes validation from our routine, the way we stretch in the morning to how we put on our shoes. Everything kind of validates us in a small way.
Mhm.
So you become emotionally attached to your routine. You become emotionally attached to your pattern, your momentum, whatever you feel like is validating you at that time. And when you take a step back, you look at the spreadsheet of your life and you're like, well, how much is this actually benefiting me and who I really am and where I really want to be? So that I think that's what it was. Like I took a step back and was like this moving around this way and allowing myself to feel this way and be driven by these feelings that aren't conducive and aren't really productive. That's not the overall is not good for me. It's not the overall profit of that is not working in my favor.
What do you do for work?
Right now, I am leaning more into my own company. I'm a handyman. I
Oh,
specialize in appliance repair and TV mounting.
I had no
I actually
idea,
got
bro.
some actually got some
Nice.
labeling right here.
Oh,
It's
you put
Tall,
your
Dark, and
number there
Handy.
too.
Name of my business is Tall, Dark, and Handy. Yeah, I do appliance repair and TV mounting, and I'm leaning into it, man. I'm leaning really hard into it this year.
Is
And
that just you, or you have partners, or?
right now, I'm the only repairman, but
Mm.
I'm working with multiple different partners on the back end as far as the business side of things. And this is really the first time I've had the time and the space to completely focus on it. So that's where the I feel really good comes from because it's just like finally I can focus on what I want to focus on.
Well, the irony of it all is you said you have two kids. So how is it now that you have the time and space with two kids and not before?
Because you'd be surprised how much time and space you don't have when you're not on purpose.
Mm.
Like when you're not on, you're living in your purpose and you're not, it's like time is just, it's just subjective at that point. Like even the value of it, if you're not actually moving towards a goal or moving towards a purpose, time is just passing. And so it's not to say that things were purposeless before my children. I definitely knew who I wanted to be. I knew what I was interested in and where I wanted to take that. But the kids just turn it into hyperdrive. And so not only do they make you kind of hurry up, and if you have a dream, they make you hurry up and achieve it. But on the other end, we work hard, but on the other end, it makes you more disciplined as far as you're playing. Like we play hard and we work hard. And I'm serious about that. So I had to decide if I'm serious on one end about creating a business for myself and doing things this way and kind of clocking out at a traditional, sense of things, I also need to have discipline in order to create time for myself, even if that comes with, even if it takes stress to get to that point. You have to fight for that, just because it's free time or it's time when we're doing the things we want, you still have to fight for it and you have to fight to keep it. So that was in itself a bit of a journey and just learning how to be a more present father,
Mm.
learning how to put routines in play. My wife is great. She's fantastic with the boys. They're both super bright. They're super smart. And it's just about your routine, about how you build your routine. So if you want free time, if you want time to be able to really build something for yourself, you create it in the same way you create a business plan, because both things are just as beneficial.
You mentioned the word purpose. What is your purpose?
My purpose, I've discovered one of my purposes is definitely to be a facilitator.
Mm.
And and it's like, well, that's still kind of a general statement, but like a facilitator of what? And I enjoy restoring quality of life. I enjoy giving people a good sense of quality of life because that's something that I enjoy very much. We put things off. We have all types of procrastination habits, and our things never get done. And it's one little thing after another. It stacks up. Eventually, you're like, man, I'm not feeling as well. I feel like maybe I'm not washing my face enough. Maybe my diet's changed. Maybe this and that. But it's all these little things that we ignore and we adjust to them, and you don't realize that you've adjusted yourself into a corner just to deal, just to get up in the morning, just to be able to live your life and still have the things flow. But I like to restore the space that people don't realize they have. And so a big part of the way I could facilitate that was through something that I'm like, how can I facilitate that through something I'm good at? And I'm like, well, the appliance repair. I worked with different companies for over multiple different years. I've had experience in different industries. So I'm like, well, and I like fixing stuff. So I just connected the two, and it's made me feel really good. It just created a sense of ownership about like and wanting to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because we grew up together. I've known you for since like I think high school and middle school, and I don't ever remember you like being into like fixing things or like if you asked me back then, I had no idea that you'd be doing that now.
I know, and that's the thing, man. I was so broad, and yeah, I believe I was in ninth grade and you were in 10th grade, and a lot, and that too. A lot of my friends ended up being older than me. Like it was just diversity. I needed diversity. I needed people who knew just a little bit more than I did, or a little bit more further along in whatever their thought process was. Because a lot of that time was just me figuring it out and just finding different things to be interested in. And I was definitely all over the place for sure.
Yeah, and it's crazy because right now times are very, very hard. The cost of living is ridiculous. We just got tariffs, this and that. But when I hear you speak, I'm not hearing like a money hungry, like gotta get rich person. I'm hearing more of a spiritual person. So tell me your thoughts on money and like because I don't get money hungry vibes from you.
I believe that they're one and the same. Um, money, just bringing a little etymology into it, money
Mhm.
is just currency, and currency is just current, and current is an energy form. It can be waves, it can be electricity. And so your energy and how you carry yourself, your nature will determine what kind of money you get in this life.
Mhm.
That's my personal look at it. And, I could, if I wasn't always like that, it wouldn't make sense to me to be like that now. Um, Pertaining to different goals, I could see that being the case if like, yeah, if I wanted to own a Fortune 500 company, if the goals kind of justified, me stepping into that space, then I could totally see it. You know what I mean? I could totally see it. I could say my attitude has changed a lot more about money since I was younger. I was a lot more laissez-faire about it. I was a little more like, hey, I just like things to be taken care of. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
not really too big on earning a lot of money as long as I have access and as long as things are able to be taken care of. But there was some common sense in there that was kind of, just being young, just kind of missing out of there where it's like, well, you need money for access and to get things done. So the attitude just had to change, on a maturity level. But I feel like I've been able to integrate both pretty well into my current situation because not only do I want to draw money, I want to draw good people. I want to draw, the word thrown around these days is tribe. I want to draw in my tribe, people that have good intention and authenticity. So I kind of taper myself to drawing all of it. And I feel like if I was to taper it more towards money, I would be able to get it, but it would be just that. And I might, lose other aspects of myself within that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're more focused on maybe self-improvement and just your inner peace rather than material and things. Is that right?
I understand that all the materials are necessary. We live in a material world. Like
Yeah.
we're here, I'm here, you're here. So we are material. So
Hmm.
you can't ignore that.
Hmm.
It's more so I'm more focused on the connections, on making good connections, on making good genuine connections with good genuine people that all have similar goals and a similar direction. And that tends to take it a little more off of the beaten path of like material and physical because you're getting more into intangible stuff, you know what I mean, when dealing with people. So I've learned to kind of integrate both.
Hmm.
Initially, I was just a connections guy. I'm like, I just want to, oh, I'm just trying to be friends with everybody. And it's like, dude, once you get older, you realize that that's not conducive to business. And a lot of wires can get crossed when you get your emotions involved and when you try to be friends with people, try to people please, any of that stuff. It feels good, but it's just another form of self-sabotage in the long run.
People pleasing is a form of self-sabotage.
Yes,
Yeah, if it goes too far, I would say. Because yeah,
absolutely.
would you consider yourself a people pleaser?
I used to be for sure,
Mm.
for sure. And there's an aspect of that that's never gonna die within me. It's just we're put here to help each other. I love helping people. I love making people feel happy, but the people pleasing aspect is a bit more forced. Not like anybody who's a people pleaser is forcing it. That's just the best words I can use for it right now. But you know, general servitude. How can I serve my community? How can I serve myself? That's a little different than just like people pleasing because that's just people. It's like, well, how can I serve the community? How can I serve my environment? How can I serve my children? How can I serve the world around me and be the best version of myself? So it's more embodying a role than putting it outside myself as to, please this person, please that person, please this. And then each piece is a different piece of validation. It becomes a little more chopped up that way, I feel
Well,
like.
you mentioned the word validation, and I was wondering, like, were you a people pleaser to help other people and because you cared about other people, or were you a people pleaser for validation and to be liked? Because those are very, very different reasons to be a people
It
pleaser, or like
those
both.
no, no, people pleasing in a general sense comes from a selfish place. That doesn't mean that the person's intentions were bad, but typically it comes from a selfish place. And
Be
so
liked.
speaking honestly, in my case, it was more of a defensive thing. And
Interesting.
so how I looked at it, especially in school, was that if you can keep the people around you happy, not necessarily, subjugating yourself, but if you can keep the people around you happy and keep yourself as a non-threat, then that's just a kind of an inverted way of conflict avoidance. I was very conflict avoidant when I was younger when it came to certain stuff. So that was more of a defense mechanism as far as like whether people like me or not, I always had like a nice group of friends. So the needing to expand that and needing the whole, you know, class or school or anything, it never expanded that far. I knew I always had a good group of friends that I could laugh and chill with. So that always got me by. It was just more so a defense mechanism from everybody else of like, I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be singled out for no reason, nothing like that. I'm just trying to be a good person. So, when we're young, it's all emotional and reactionary. So it's immediately, I don't want to feel this feeling. My body reacts this way. And you pretty much train that into yourself over the years. And our job as adults is to recognize that and not let it just keep running
Yep.
because it's going to run us into the ground. But at some point, I did recognize that. And it was like, I was doing that as a defense mechanism. It wasn't really, that's not really like all the way in my personality. I do love helping people. So I don't want to lose that. But yeah, like a lot of it is reactionary. It just ends
Yeah,
up
I mean,
being,
in high school, you were always the guy that everybody liked. Nobody was like, "Oh, I don't like Larry. He's annoying." Yeah, I remember you had a really clean reputation in high school.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's actually pretty cliche when you see some of these movies and stuff, and they're just like you see like maybe the not so popular kid hanging out with the popular kid, and then they find out that it's not so sweet behind the curtain. And I wouldn't consider myself like popular by any means. Like I just try to make friends with as many people as possible. Like so it was like reverse.
Uh,
I'm just trying to be cool with people. I like to laugh and make people laugh. So let me just try that rather than being like upheld as this person and social status or anything like that. Man, I just wanted more friends than enemies. Really, that's just
yeah, but that's
what.
the thing. I don't remember I don't remember you having any enemies. You were always the cool kid that rapped, and I did want to talk about that too. You're still rapping.
Yeah, I do write. I do still write. I do still. That's kind of like my Batman shtick. I do still. I participate in rap battles. I do. I write music. The business has obviously taken like a lot of my focus, but I do still, whenever I get a chance, whenever some lyrics come to me, I definitely write.
Have you ever made like a master track? I never heard.
I've done I've done one production with a group that I was with. We called the Hitchhikers, and we got some stuff on SoundCloud as a group. And it, like I said, it's on SoundCloud. I got it. I got the link on my Instagram, I believe. And that was some years back. So that's pretty much all I have on in recent history as far as like putting stuff out. But everything I think has a way of circling back. So once I understood I had the opportunity here to like expand my business and do more for myself, I'm still keeping all of that in mind to build myself a home studio. To my father's a DJ, so he's got a
Oh,
bunch of
I never
equipment.
knew
He wants
that.
to pay. Hmm. Yep, Larry Holland. I'm Larry Holland the third. That's Larry Holland Jr. And my grandfather's Larry
And he's
Holland the
still
first.
DJing nowadays?
He does, yeah, he does gigs every now and again. He's getting
Oh,
into the content. He's getting into content creation. I'm pushing him. I'm like, please get into content creation because
yep.
people need to see how good you are. He's amazing. DJ Lay, 240. And yeah, that was probably the inspiration behind the music. I've always been around it. So it was real easy when we would all listen to music and do our thing and stuff back in the day. It was just, you know, it was in the blood.
You're welcome to spit a verse if you want.
All right now, oh no,
You're
I don't got
welcome
nothing
to.
off the head. No, no, I ain't gonna throw nothing up for you now.
We need a beat, right?
Give me a beat, give me a beat. But we keeping it professional today. I'll do the entertainment next time.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, like, because you said you push your father for content creation, but I haven't seen too much content from you lately.
Because I'm not really the content creation is more so on the back end. That's not really
Mhm.
something I'm focused on.
So
I do
your business
my
is
right
your
if
main
in
focus.
order of priority, business is first,
Uh,
family is second,
Whoa,
ha
business is before family?
family is business, dog. My family is my business. So let me explain. Business is first in that my business is not just this.
Mm-hmm.
My business is my legacy.
Uh-huh.
Everything I pass on to my kids,
Uh-huh.
if I leave here now, everything that my wife would have to hold them going forward, that's what I'm building. My family, when I say they're second, and this is where we get to, I don't want people to get too caught up in the quantification of it, numbers for second
Uh,
and third place. It could be 1A, 1B, whatever we want. But the reason why I put myself first, business, I mean me. So the reason why I put myself first is because without me, everything else kind of falters. I hold myself up as the leader of my family unit. Of course, my wife is super capable of raising the kids, making money for herself, doing what she has to. But why would I want her to do that? And so my priority is creating a foundation for my family to where we're not going from check to check. We're not going from bill to bill. Eggs is $12 a carton these days. You see what's happening. You just
yep.
mentioned the tariffs
Yep.
earlier. So the more we see that happening, the more important it is for people to understand that you have to create something for yourself.
Yep.
The 9 to 5 is going extinct as we know it. And so in the next 10 years, if you don't have something, some kind of other stream of income running for yourself, just being frank, it's going to be a bit tougher.
AI is taking a lot of jobs very rapidly.
It is, and that's one of the factors. And so you have to create a niche for yourself and create something that your family can stand behind as well, even if they don't agree at first.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk about kids because I have no kids and I have friends who push me to have kids and I'm at the age, I'm 35 and yeah, you mentioned before that they push you and that they motivate you and we mentioned people pleasing and one reason why I don't have kids is because I feel like if I did, I would just always put them first and I would be such a good father that I would probably drain myself just because like I would do everything for them. I would kind of like stop having fun. Like this weekend I'm going out with the boys. I probably wouldn't be going out if I had kids. I would just put them first and do everything for them. So are you kind of like that? Are you kind of like put the kids first? Like help me understand that.
It's all a journey. They're part of the reason why I wanted to break out and do something on my own. One, to show them that they could do it. You have a tiny little audience that watches everything you do, and it just makes you want to be the best version of yourself. You don't have to be, and this is a mistake that people make, you don't have to be the most policed version of yourself. Don't be your representative in front of your kids. Be your real self, but be a refined version. We don't have to be raw and cursing and do everything that we would do with adults, we do around kids. No, not like that, but be yourself around your kids. And they kind of forced me to be myself all the time. Um, whether it was how I address them, my patience with myself, whatever it is. In the beginning, it 100% was about them because they're here. We're scared. No, there's not one person that has a kid and isn't scared. I don't care who you are.
Especially new parents, right?
It's especially new parents, especially new. It's new. So there's no way to, you can't feel something about, you can't not feel, you haven't experienced it before. So there's no way to deny yourself, of those feelings or anything like that. But in the beginning, it 100% is about the kids. And that's part of the journey. You have to make it not about just the kids because then who's raising them? And that's really what me and my wife spoke on. It's like, if it's all about the kids, which is a lot of what gets pushed, everything for them. Okay, well, if you're not building yourself, if you're not still staying steadfast on the path that you know you wanted to create for yourself before you had children, whether they made you want it more, stay on that path. Because what are you really doing for them? And it goes back, you made a really good point in your question, and it goes back to people pleasing. In just making people happy, just that, what are you actually doing for yourself other than being validative, trying to protect yourself, if defense mechanism? What are you actually doing to progress and move forward if you're just doing it for the sake of pleasing them? The feeling is going to be, it's temporary. It's going to be gone at some point. So
Mhm.
what are you really doing? What do you take away from that that's tangible that you can, okay, I did this, I learned this, I got this, now I can move forward. And so with kids, it's the same thing. People fall into a pattern, and I'm just going to be frank. It might, it's not a popular opinion, but people fall into a pattern of people pleasing their kids. Men fall into a habit of people pleasing with their wives.
Yep.
It's across the board. But when you solely, and this is where you see people pleasing just each other at work, business partners, and that's where you see relationships actually go sour. It's too much of a good thing, man. You can't just have sugar. You need
Yeah,
your
so let's
vegetables.
talk about relationships because I know a lot of people right now who are struggling. I feel like there are more people single than ever before. The divorce rate is going up, and it's like less and less people are having kids. So, and you've been married for how long now?
We've been married. We've been together since 2015. We've been married since 2021.
So you've been together for 10 years now. So what is the key? How do you do it, man? How in this crazy world with social media and Tinder and Hinge and Instagram, how do you do it, man?
The best example I can give is like if you have a favorite food or a favorite movie or a favorite game or anything that's your favorite, like
Hmm.
how do you learn to keep liking that thing? Like how do you keep from washing yourself out on this thing? And it can be, doesn't have to be just one single thing because a person is not just one single thing. That's the beautiful part. So she's not just one thing to me. She's thousands of these different things. And every day that I kind of facilitate that out of her, you just see something new. You see something new out of your partner all the time when you're constantly working towards building something together. Um, I pride myself on understanding people, understanding relationships, being very self-aware. So there's always something new to learn about us. Every day we learn about something about the human condition that we didn't know the day before. So if you're always learning, man, like just keep learning. It's just
What
like
is
with the
something
kids.
that
If
you
you
learned
just
recently?
uh I'll say maybe last year, something that really stuck, and it goes back to our previous point about pleasing with the kids,
Uh-huh.
is that you as a parent, no matter what you do, you're going to be your kid's trauma. You're
Wow.
going to traumatize them
Yeah.
in some way
Wow.
or another,
Yeah.
no matter what you do.
Even
The
if it's
goal
verbal.
is to my mother's my trauma. I will be my son's trauma. I will raise my voice to them at some point when I don't like what they're doing. I will do something. I will pick them up and take them, bring them over here when they don't want to go. We will have to leave before they're ready to leave. That's going to come off as trauma to them.
Yeah.
That's why kids react the way that they do.
Yeah.
Now, do they internalize it? Do they keep it for? No, because it's not that deep of a trauma. And so my goal as a parent is to, what I've learned is that you can only mitigate that so much. And the harder I focus on you and just making sure you're happy and you're never upset and you're this and that, I'm already traumatizing you. Because as soon as you get out here and somebody does something mean and somebody does something that you haven't seen before or that you weren't mentally prepared for, it's going to feel like your world is falling apart. It is. And that's, or you see people getting out later in life, like having trouble leaving later in life, leaving the home, because it's just a lot of, you know, coddling in terms of that. It's not a lot of, I don't beat them over the head. It's not that, it doesn't have to be that rough, but it's just a level of it to where you don't have to subjugate yourself to things that you see around you. Just choose.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we need a balance, right? Because if you're too soft on them, then they get traumatized. Then they're not prepared for the world. If you're too
The
soft on
world to
them,
traumatize them.
yeah, the world
Yeah.
will traumatize them. But if you're too hard, then you traumatize them. Then there's resentment. And one thing that I strongly encourage parents to do is think about your kids like 20, 30 years from now. Because even today, like I still remember shit from childhood. I still remember things that my father did when I was 5, 6. Same thing with my mother, sister, brother. Like I'm 35 today. I remember stuff from 30 years ago. So one thing I would encourage every parent to do is just try to look through their 35, 40-year-old eyes and look back because they remember a lot, man. Kids remember a lot.
That's really good advice. That's really sound advice, dude. To and I don't hear that a lot.
Uh,
You might be the first person that has said it
and
in
I've
that
never
kind of
had
way.
kids, but I just know, because we like even you, like I'm sure you remember things from like 6, 7, 8, don't you?
Oh yeah. And I find myself, the more you sit with self and quiet things down, the further back you can go and remember. And the more clearly and more further back you can go, the easier it is to kind of tackle those things that may have a grip, a hold on us when you can see it. Most of the time we can remember, all we remember is the feeling. We remember and we're like, I don't want to think about it. You just remember kind of how you felt at that time. But if you can just cold logically view the scene as if you're
Objective.
watching a movie, objectively, exactly, just as if you're watching a movie, you're like, oh man, this wasn't my fault. I didn't know this. Like you see the whole picture of what you actually would were responsible for and what you weren't at that age. Because a lot of it boils down to guilt when it comes to kids and growing up and stuff
Yeah,
like that. They hold a lot of guilt,
self-blame.
self-blame, exactly. But you, as long as you can, if you can sit with self and quiet, in silence and go further and further back, you'll just find there's more and more understanding to be had. That's just kind of waiting on you to see it clearly.
So I believe that finding the root of our issues and finding the root of our problems is actually like 80% of the solution. You know, like there's so many people, so many adults today, my age or older, who have a lot of self-blame, and a lot of them don't actually sit, like you said, sit in the quiet and actually like, figure out the root of it. And, I'm glad because now the world is talking a lot about like childhood trauma and childhood in general. And, what growing up, it wasn't like that. Like people weren't talking about the childhood like they are today, you know?
No, no, it just wasn't a hot topic. It was a lot of just kind of just go and get through it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Just
self-awareness is
look
really like a,
forward. Look forward.
yeah, just look forward and do what you got to do. You know, it was just it could come off as cutthroat or maybe more tunnel vision, I guess is a better word
Yeah.
for it. But now it's like, yeah, self-awareness is the name of the game now, especially with, I mean, you yourself, you have a podcast and I've seen you interview all types of people
Hmm.
from all different walks of life. And
Hmm.
that takes a level of self-awareness to be
Hmm.
able to sit with each and every different person, not only to create something for yourself, a brand and a platform for yourself and other people to come, which I'm very grateful that you invited me on here.
Hmm.
But it shows that self-awareness produces these types of results. You had to sit with yourself and understand, well, what is it that I really like doing? I love having intellectual conversations. I love building. I love, listening to people talk about their business. All the things that you promote, that it flourish because it's you. This is just your personality pretty much on display in a form of
Yeah.
how you want to, the things that you want to do.
It's funny because I heard a quote the other day. This reminds me of it's something like emotional intelligence is the currency now, or something like that. Like I mean, think about dating, right? Like it is true that people care about money and looks, but emotional intelligence has been talked about a lot lately, and the importance of it. And now like instead of like the 6'4" and the millionaire, like people are starting to realize, emotional intelligence and emotional availability is where it's at, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I hope that that leads to a little more patience just amongst people because we're all like so great. Everybody has something to offer. Everybody. Um, and I just think if we had a little bit more patience with ourselves
Hmm.
to understand what we offer, we'd
Hmm.
be more willing to sit with each other and be like, okay, well, what does everybody bring it to the table? But you know what you bring to the table. So it's like you almost, when you know what you bring, you almost can't wait to get to the table. It's an inversion. It's not really like well, I shouldn't have to do this or I shouldn't have to feel like I do that. It's not about fitting in. It's about just what we're here to do. Don't sell yourself short. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that with the rush and the go and just this news, this mandate, that executive order, this price hike, that taxation. It just makes everything, it puts people in a state where they think they have ADHD and they don't. It's just overstimulation.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is like kind of like a slow down mentality from you. Like slow it down, take a chill pill, relax. Like because I have a lot of friends who are like very, very hustly, very like work 7 days a week and very like, get that money, no rest takes and from you I'm getting more of like a slow it down mentality.
For sure, for sure. We could definitely look at it that way. And
Mhm.
it's I whether it looks like I don't want to seem like it's in contrast to that. I mean, how it looks is how it looks. I respect anybody for the way they go about their business.
Mhm.
What I've noticed is that it's not as if we have forever, but we tend to have more time than we think we do.
Interesting.
And a lot of times when we don't have the time that we think we do, or we feel like we have no time, usually it's because our plates are stacked too high. And this is a funny part with people is that that's usually the part that's hardest for them to compromise with. It's like, well, just spread the plate out. Just take this off your plate. Take maybe one plate off, one dish off. Just make it that one dish lighter. Just take one dish off. You never, that seems to be the part that people have the hardest time compromising with. You're like, oh, I can't well, do this. I can't. I got to be here. I got to do that. I got to do that. And now we're coming back to the people pleasing thing. Some of that ties in. Some of just feeling like we feel good having a lot of things on our plate, whether the things get done or not. Just having them on the plate feels good sometimes. And
Hmm.
so that's where just you have to slow down and understand what your speed is. We've seen plenty of people successful at their speed. What makes you think you can't succeed at almost that speed? Just one notch below that speed or one notch above. You could be going faster, but it's like, how do we know that that's the correct speed for us until you get to the end? And it's like, dang, maybe I shouldn't have rushed this. Dang, maybe I shouldn't have, shoulda, coulda, woulda. So I'm not with complacency and thinking too long and waiting too long. Definitely
Mhm.
make your move and shoot your shot. But don't think that everything has to be bottlenecked through the same hole at the same time in the same place. Like there's no rush. You're going to age yourself out faster than you think, thinking like that.
Yeah, we would know. So you mentioned the phrase coulda, shoulda, woulda, and I do want to talk about the concept of regret because lately I have been very like, oh, like I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have invested in that stock, I messed up here. I've been kind of full of regret lately, and so let's talk about that. Like, how do you view regret, and do you have any?
I definitely used to have a lot of regret, kind of
Hmm.
tying back to what you were saying about guilt. I used to have a lot of regrets and it was just tied to not seeing the picture completely
Hmm.
because I would just kind of see myself and how I felt in what was happening and just rerun it and just run that through the ringer dringer. And when you do that with a feeling, your body has to come up with justification for it. So it's like the only thing I can think of is like guilt, regret, not guilt, let's expand out. How do we feel this? It's just quick, like we say with everything, quick, quick, quick. So it's just quick feeling, quick justification, quick validation. Everything is just very
Instant.
microwave tapered, instant, exactly. So that was the instant result on that, where a lot of regret came out of and I realized when I traced it back, it was coming from the guilt I was feeling. And so I sat with that. I'm like, well, why am I feeling so guilty? And when I broke down a lot of those reasons never even came down to me or anything that I did to anybody. It's just how I justified the situation because kids do that. It's like, well, this is going bad, so it must be my fault. That's most kids' logic, and we have to be careful with that as parents too, that we make it very clear to them that it's not a blame game, that things aren't their fault, but they can still be responsible for things.
Are you
And
comfortable with talking about what made you feel guilty?
uh yeah, no, I'm comfortable with it because it really doesn't boil down to any single situations.
Hmm.
It usually every time I would think on it, it would always come down to something I couldn't control. Almost every single time. So situations I could control where like, oh, maybe uh I don't know, maybe I should have like called maybe when I was 17, or maybe I should have called this job back when they called me, or maybe I would have made more money during this summer at this time, or maybe I would have had I fought a little harder to stay in the school that I was in when I was 19, that maybe things would have been. And so what I understood through that is that the end part of that, where you're like, maybe if I did this, maybe this would have happened. And I kind of compare it to where I am now or where I was when I started thinking about that. It 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 doesn't one thing doesn't justify another if you're not still moving forward in life. So that's why it didn't make sense to me because I was still moving forward in life. So me having regrets and tying it to that guilt, it didn't make any sense because I was still creating opportunities for myself, no matter what. So it all works in a cycle, and regret and guilt are just stoppages in that cycle. When you're feeling guilt and you're feeling regret, and there's nothing wrong with feeling those, but when you're bogging down in them, that means that that's being in a rut. That's putting ourselves in a stoppage of the cycle because the cycle you already know if we're in the cycle, something good is coming. There's another chance coming around the corner as long as we stay ready for it and work to be ready for it. So once I embodied the work a little bit more, the regret kind of just faded because it's like you're constantly working to the next best thing, to the next best version of yourself. So it doesn't even feel like it made sense anymore. to
Yeah,
even have that feeling.
it seems like once you got locked in, like you were too busy to be full of regret. And you know, I heard this quote a few months ago that stuck with me, and I mentioned it in my last podcast as well. It said something like, "It's all of our first times on this earth." And I really like that quote because it establishes like how are you supposed to know? How are we supposed to know that Bitcoin was going to go from 12 cents to $100,000? How are we supposed to
Right.
know that? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. You literally can't regret that.
You can't regret it because nobody can tell the future, and there are opportunities right now that we could take that we won't regret in the future if we take them. So I did want to talk about meditation because you said you meditate, and you know this is something I know very little about, but I'm trying to learn more about. You know, it's interesting because 50 years ago, the West used to laugh at meditation. Remember, meditation started it in the East, I think in India, and 50 years ago, America was like, there's no science behind that shit. Like that's nonsense.
Right.
It's pseudoscience. So let's and you know the West isn't really laughing anymore. So let's talk about meditation. How often do you meditate?
Um, at least 2 or 3 times a week,
Okay, and
at the very least, and it depends on and it could depend on what's going on in my life at the time. If things are a bit hectic and picked up, I might take a little. I'll take the same quantity of times, but I might take a little more time, go a little more in depth and decompress and things like that.
and then how long are your
And
sessions? Like 30 minutes?
it ranges. It all ranges. It's very similar to prayer in a lot of aspects because it takes as long as you need it to. It takes as long as you need it to get an answer to, and it can do whatever you need it to do. If you just want to relax your body, if you just want to clear your mind, if you just want to stop thinking about this one thing that just keeps rattling over and over in your head, you can play a little music or something to tune that out while you focus on your thoughts. It's for what meditation is just, I like to look at it as just active choosing. Like you were just choosing to do nothing. And within that nothing, you're choosing whatever you want after that.
What do you think about while you meditate?
Nothing.
Interesting. How is
I
is that even cognitively possible to think about nothing?
in a in an in a from a scientific sense, no, because obviously your synapses are always going to be firing. Like you can't stop your brain from braining. You can't stop your heart from beating. You can't stop that. But what it is what you can control is your perception
Hmm.
of your own thoughts. And so just like somebody can be standing right in front of you and you don't perceive them. You can perceive them as not there. That doesn't mean they don't exist. That doesn't mean they're not a person. They don't matter. They're not special like all of us. That's cool. But just same way your thoughts are just like that. They are literally your children in my eyes. They get your attention. They try to get your attention. Some of them are absolute. Some of the reasons for getting your attention are absolutely worth it. Some of them is just mommy, look at me. So you going inside and kind of parsing through which thoughts are which, sitting with those thoughts, just let them happen. One thing that people get misconstrued with meditation is that you're sitting there like don't think, like
Uh-huh.
trying to quiet yourself down. Like you're not trying anything. You're going directly to whatever it is, and you're just staring it right into the face until it just quiets down.
So it
So
sounds
if
like you
that's
think about things that make you uncomfortable during meditation.
whatever may have you in a state, that's in a sense of if I'm overstimulated or if I'm
Uh-huh.
stressed or something like that, in that type of if I'm meditating because I'm stressed or if I'm meditating because I'm overstimulated, I'm going straight to the reason for it. That's like how it's structured. If I'm just meditating to relax my body, there's no reason there. So I'm just sitting there and I'm it's tapered thinking. So you do have to think, but it's completely up to you what it is you're thinking about. While other noise may be happening, while other things may be happening, you're definitely in control of where you are currently, just like we try to be in the world. Everything's happening, Trump, border, weather, tornadoes, where are you? You're standing right here, right? We're both sitting here, choosing to have a conversation, catching up on old times. We're choosing to be here. You can do the same thing in your mind, despite the background and the curtains and the me and the white walls and despite whatever is already happening, as above, so below, as within, so without. So you can go inside and just choose. whatever it is you want to be, whatever it is you want to do. If I'm stressed, I'm
Yeah.
choosing to address it.
I'm thinking about the word focus right now. I feel like you're talking about a focus. So I did kind of want to switch gears and talk about confidence because you've always came across as a pretty confident person. And when I speak to most people our age, most of them say that their confidence went up since, let's say, high school. W would you say that applies to you? Are you more confident now than let's say in high school days?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate the compliment, by the way, too.
Uh-huh.
That I come off as a guy that I've always come off as a confident guy. I've done my best to kind of maintain that.
Mhm.
It wasn't like it was a struggle, but obviously it was harder when we were younger than when we're older and we own
Why
more
is
things
that?
about
Why
ourselves.
why is it harder when we're younger?
Because we don't know ourselves as well yet.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
still learning ourselves, very
Yep.
much so. We're still
Mhm.
learning other people around us, and it's the patterns. We don't know the reads yet. We don't know all the social reads and the social cues and patterns, and we're still being reflective. We're still being externally reflective. We haven't really taken that time to sit with self and to reflect. No, it doesn't necessarily take meditation to do that, but we haven't taken that extra time to even know that that's what we need to be doing. You're just in it. And so that kind of shapes who you are and your family life as well, how you're raised, you know, shapes how you take things in. But yeah, for sure, it's just learning. We're all just learning at that time,
Right. So it sounds to me like introspection and knowing yourself played a large role in your increase in confidence.
for sure, for
So
sure.
let's say we were to speak to a high school. Let's say we were to speak to someone 18, 9, 8, 17, 18. So what and let's say they were to ask you like how do I build my confidence? So introspection is one. What else besides that?
Having having something you care about more than how your confidence is perceived.
Having something you care like kids.
Having something you care about more than how you care about your confidence being perceived. So
Mhm.
like, we care about how confident we are.
Yep.
We care about our lives. We care about podcasts. I care about my business. You care about your podcast. We
Uh-huh.
care about these things. Do
Hmm.
you, but do we care more about these things than we do about how people perceive us? And if you have that sense of ownership just translates. It just oozes out of you. People look at you and they know you've got something going on. It's like you're thinking about something. You've got something you're working on, and because, like you said, focus.
Hmm.
So if you're focused on something other than that, your body will reflect that as well,
So
for
one thing
sure,
that I noticed in myself and the vast majority of people around our age is that most of us care significantly less about what other people think about us, and the less we care, the easier life gets.
for sure,
Have you sort of felt that?
for sure, for sure. And I think the biggest part of that comes from just being around different people. We're not around the same group of people that we were for 4 to even 12 years if you're in the same district your whole time, like however many years it is. So we've had enough time just bumping shoulders, talking,
Hmm.
being around different people. We've internalized all of our different experiences, and that just shapes and evolves more so like who you already could have been this person, but now you're just a more evolved form of yourself. I can still see your personality within you. I don't
Hmm.
see that, oh, you've changed. No, you're still an intellectual person. You love having intellectual conversations. That's
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
changed about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but I can see the evolved version in what it's become,
Hmm.
and the confidence behind that because you know what you're doing.
Uh,
So that I think that plays a big part of it. Um, Me, I like being a facilitator. I like being able to talk to people. So this career allows me to have interface with all different types of people. It allows me to, while also having something valuable to offer. And that doesn't really exist. And not to make it sound transactional, but that doesn't really exist when we're kids. As you become adults, it becomes a little more transactional. It just by necessity, through relationships, through however we. So you have to have a little more to bring besides just this person's cool or it feels good to be around this person. This person makes me laugh. This person's on the team. This person, it's about connections. It's like, hey man, like I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing, and I'm on a similar path. I'd love to plug you in with some people. We could do lunch. I would love to connect with you on some type of way. It's just the energy. You want to be around it. So as we've gotten further out of that, we've gotten more further into spaces like these where different energy draws you in.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. So I did want to talk about I would say somewhat of like a shared trauma, which is our friend Beezy. So Larry and I grew up together for the people listening, and we had a mutual friend named Ryan, and a few years ago he actually passed away. And I like talking about this topic because I really wonder like how other people who knew him well take it in. Because I know how I take it in. I don't know how you take it in. So
Yeah.
how do you take that in?
Man, and not to sound, well, first off, I mean, I took it about as hard as anybody else would take it. That was my boy, just like
Uh,
you're my boy, the rest of you
uh,
guys. Like, and for the audience, like we all go way back and we've all been friends with each other since roughly ninth, 10th grade. And
uh,
we've all kept in contact. We've all kept tabs on what each other's been doing in life. We want to know that we're all doing well,
yep,
regardless if we're talking every day or not. I know what Christian's been doing. He knows what I've been doing.
yep.
I've kept tabs on my other friends to see how they've been. And BZ was one of them. And so, of course, it hurts. Of course, it hurts. You lose because you guys are my brothers. And it's a little bit different. Um, Coming up that way, I grew up an only child.
Mhm,
So I had a lot of adopted brothers that I would
mhm,
kind of latch on to.
mhm.
And if we resonate, man, like, I'm holding you down. I'm very loyal as a friend. So it of course, it hit me hard. It hit me, about as hard as any of you guys, because that connection that we have. But not to sound morbid, it's like, it feels like, personally for where we came from, it feels like we just been getting a lot of that. It feels like it's just been a lot of our class, caring about classmates, not making it and going through different situations and trials and tribulations. There's a lot of people that have passed away, you know, and it just makes you more appreciative of where you currently are.
Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't slow me down. It doesn't make me feel morbid. It doesn't, oh, what's the point? This happened, that's happening. I have a lot of people that I was friends with, man, that we can't speak on anymore. And it's insane. And it same way as the children bringing life into the world, does that, lights a fire, that lit a fire under me too. And it's like, whatever I'm gonna do, whatever I'm here, whatever my purpose is, I'm gonna just do it.
yep,
I don't have time to play around anymore. And we don't, whether it's connections or relationships, even friendships, we don't have time to play around. That's why I love that you called me to do this, man. I love the fact that we were able to reconnect on here. And it's not like I'm thinking that in the back of my head, but just things like this come full circle. The real always comes full circle. And
yeah.
the people that are meant to be in your life will stay in your life and will be that way. And the people that you lose, it's not that they weren't meant to be there. It's just that everybody's meant to be somewhere different.
Yeah,
And that's all we could chalk it up to.
I think connecting with old friends is really really important. And I actually counted. It's been 7 people that passed away since high school, and there was only I graduated '07, which is 18 years. So it's crazy. But you did mention the silver lining, which is that it does make us appreciate our own life more and our own health more. And I guess that's kind of like why God allows suffering, because I think one reason why is because it helps us appreciate our own life more, I think.
Definitely. Definitely, man. I'm a firm believer that the universe works in duality. There's not one without the other.
Mhm.
You wouldn't know
Yin yang.
happy if you didn't know suffering. And so these things happen, and yeah, and I'm glad that's all you could, you know what I mean, as far as the numbers and stuff. Like, I personally, I've heard of even more, and it at certain point, it's like, am I going to keep just down, 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 down with every bit of bad news that I hear about everything,
Mhm.
or am I going to use that and push forward and make sure that I'm making the mark on the world that I want to make sure that my kids see me being 100% of who I am and not faking the funk. I'm still who I am to this day. I'm a nerd, man. I've always been a nerd. I got video games and animes and stuff. They watch daddy doing his thing. They want to learn how to do it. I show them how to do it. But they also see me when I'm, you know, rebuilding the fence or if I'm fixing a washer or dryer
Tell me you still have
or,
your Pokemon cards.
Oh, dude. Oh, I'll show them right now, man.
Yeah.
They're in the back somewhere. But it's like I have all of that stuff, and all that crap's gonna get sold at some point. But it's like, some of the stuff you maintain, like your collections and stuff, you maintain some of this stuff just to have, even if it's sports memorabilia. I've got some in the corner there that I maintain. That'll probably get sold at some point. And it's like, that's who you are. I'm like, look, this is a little bit of my history. This is a little bit of who I was, who I am. Am I gonna be that forever? No, because we evolve and we change.
Mhm.
But I keep the parts of myself around that I resonated with maybe when I was younger or as a child to keep in touch with my inner child and
Yeah.
remember who it is that I'm fighting for.
Yeah, I really like the phrase inner child because one thing you realize as you grow older is that inner child never goes away. You know, that inner child that was once 5, 6, 7, 8, it's still there when you're 35, 40, 50. He's still there and he's still wanting something and he's still needing something and he's still hurting from something. So I like that phrase inner child. So I'm down to my last question, which is what is your long-term plan?
My long-term plan, in a general sense for my family, is to create, create a sense of financial freedom, to where we're not necessarily bogged down to check, policy to policy, waiting on somebody for a handout. I want to teach myself and then teach my children how to generate wealth and maintain it and sustain it. So on a fiscal end, that, and on a spiritual end, it's like, man, I look at this as a training ground. Earth, this place is a training ground where we learn how to be the best version, the highest version of ourselves. And however you find a way to do that, that's all God, the creator, the universe, whatever you subscribe to, that's all it could ever want or desire, if it even could call it that. You know what I mean? A desire, so to speak. It's like that's all it could ever, it just wants to know, just like you want to know. Just like the inner child, the natural curiosity that exists from the time we're born to the time you put in the ground, you still want to know. And so my goal is to create a fertile enough ground and garden to where we can grow and we can learn. And anything you want to know, anything you want to do, expand yourself into, you can do that. But that takes money. So
Yep. And that's
I
what it
still
comes
have that
down
in
to. Like
mind.
the thing is, no matter how spiritual you are, no matter how religious you are, you got to get that bread, you know, especially when you're a man with kids, you got to get that bread and the cost of living goes up every year and it's just like that kind of like raw truth that we all just got to accept. So listen, I ran out of questions. Is there anything else you want to say?
Um, Man, I just, not from a, you already know, man, we're peers. This is not from a condescending place, dude. But I'm just super proud to like have a friend who's created a platform for himself, you know, to where you've spoken to all different types of people from all different walks of life.
Yep.
And I think it's awesome what you're doing. And I want you to keep going and get as big as you possibly can and interview me again once
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
business gets bigger and we
Yeah.
just touch base or whatever and just keep it going, man. Um, I would say, what was your biggest hurdle? Because at some point I would like to make content. So I say, what was your biggest hurdle? Not in putting it out, because it's like you just got to put it out and just put it
Uh-huh.
out and
Uh-huh.
build it as a fly. But what would you say is your biggest hurdle as far as being consistent in creation? Like your template as far as being able to create a show every week, being able to create a show every time. Like what was your first kind of hurdle in creating a template for yourself to go off of every week and to go off of for each guest? And how do you make that so easy for yourself
No, that's
or
a good question.
seemingly easy?
That's a good question. So, you know, it's so different when you actually like what you do. I don't look at this as work at all. I look at this as fun. You know, I enjoy it. It would be nice to make money off it, but I don't look at it as work or stress. So it's not doing it every week. That's the hard part. But it did take a while to start. Why? Because, you know, I'm not a licensed therapist, because I don't have a studio of my own, because I could be a better speaker, because, you know, I could be. And then I just said, you know what, just start it. And I don't regret it, man. It's enjoyable, it's fun. And I think like in the beginning, I was just thinking about like views, views, views. How do I get more views? How do I get more views? How do I get more views? And I still care about views, but regardless of views, regardless of monetization, like when you actually enjoy it, then feeling the motivation is just there. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. That translates, man. That's because I've seen a couple of your interviews. Like I said, we watch from afar and just keep a finger on the pulse. And I've seen the interviews, man, and it looks like you're doing what you like to be doing. And
Yeah.
so I definitely take that in, you know, when I think about the things that I want to do. People like you are, you know, the types of friends that I check in with as far as, well, how's he doing this over here? Like
I feel
what's
like
he
you would
got?
make a good podcast host. I feel like you should start a podcast.
I promise I will. People tell me you need to do something with your voice, do something with your voice. I will. I promise I will do something with this voice. I will talk to people in some type of way. I like your format. I like this format of just asking questions and just having your story to tell along with that. If they ask you questions, and like this is an awesome format. I would love to do something in this scale, just on a different with a different demographic. Obviously, you deal with a lot of real estate professionals and business professionals and stuff like that. So obviously I don't want to steal your idea, but I love this format that you have here.
You can
And
interview rappers because I know you like rap. I know you have a lot of rapper
I
friends.
I could do more of a music thing. I think I would more get into maybe a therapeutic space, maybe with younger men,
Mm.
something like that. But it could go any way, man. That's the beauty of it. It can go any way, and just the fact that you're consistent in doing your thing, not only me, you're showing a lot of people that not only we grew up with, but people that watch you and follow you, you're showing them that it's like you build it as you fly, man,
Yeah.
and it can still look good. It's not about what you think is perfect. It's about just getting it out there and having the people receive you.
Yeah.
So I receive you well, and I'm sure your other guests and your audience does as well. So I'm definitely motivated to stay on that path. You will be seeing some content at some point from me in the
Yeah,
future, man.
I hope so, man. And we're definitely gonna have a part two in a few months. We're gonna have a part two.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, man. Let me
Great
update you
catching up,
guys.
man.
Likewise, man. You can be good. Be safe, man.
Have a good one, man. Take care.
All right. All right.